Okay, I was going to do a quick overview of PhaseMaker by Bram Bos because, uh, and I thought I know that Doug's done a video going through the presets, so there's plenty of information out there for you who want to hear what it sounds like. So I was going to do a bit of an FM overview and just have a look at the functionality of this thing. So to do this, I was going to go and give you a brief explanation of FM. And I went on the web and I did some research, and I found a couple of great tutorial videos, which I'll link in the under the video here. Down there somewhere. And I also found that apparently I did an article on this 2 years ago when TF7 came out. So I'll link that in the article as well. I'd completely forgotten I'd ever done anything on FM, so who knew? All right, so let's have a look at this. So if you're not familiar with FM, FM is where you take a tone and you effectively modulate it. You use it like with an LFO. With frequency modulation, which means you're making pitch wobble up and down. You're adding some vibrato, and if you do that fast enough, then you will take the vibrato out from the. You'll no longer hear the pitch modulating up and down. The modulation will stray into the audible range, and you'll get a whole bunch of new overtones and harmonics appearing in the sound. So the easiest way to explain this, I think, is to use this bit here in Korg Electribe, because if I set this off, I've got a simple tone sine wave here running, and I'm going to modulate it with an LFO. It's not a sine wave. Ideally, it would be a sine wave, but this will do. So if I modulate that a little bit, okay, so now you can hear the tone is going up and down. Now if I speed up the modulation, so we've now got a wobble, now we've got a kind of grindy sound, somewhere about here. You can hear I've got an audible tone coming up, so my original sine wave has now got some extra harmonics appearing in. Now I've only used a little bit of modulation, so if I increase the modulation depth, now I'm getting lots more complexity in the sound. And you can see I now sound exactly like Neo screaming as he disappears off into the Matrix, or out of the Matrix. Right, so that's two oscillator FM synthesis. We've got a carrier, which is my sine here, and we've got a modulator, which is this thing here. That's what you need to know. Now, there are a number of synths that have FM in iOS these days, and if I go to my FM folder here, the ones I think that I would consider to be proper FM synths. EPS probably not so much. I can get rid of that now. Ubersynth has 3 operators, and at the worst modulation metrics in the world ever. Sorry, terrible. We've got DXI, which is a DX11 emulator. It's a 4 operator synth. So we've got 4 operators there. Then we've got TF7, which is more of a clone of the DX7, in that it's got I believe 6 operators. So if we go to tone, go through all these algorithms here, we've got up to 6 operators. Operators is just what the oscillators are called in the world of FM. And here, for instance, all of these are carriers because none of them are modulated by anything. Whereas here, I've got 4 carriers, 5 carriers, and 1 modulator modulating one of those carriers. So they're all the same oscillator, but depending on whether they're carrying the signal or modulating the signal, they're a carrier or a modulator. And then there's FM4, which is another 4 operator FM synth. Now there's an awful lot of synths on iOS that also have a little bit of FM built in. So you can see here we've got in Thor, we've got these FM oscillator pairs. They're just one carrier, one modulator, and you can build in those. Here in TC11, you can see we've also got FM oscillator with it's one carrier and one modulator. Over here in TerraSynth by Versin, we've got the option of making these oscillators. This can be up to 3 operators because we've got FM ratio, and we can modulate one oscillator by another, making one into a carrier and one into a modulator. In Addictive Synth, basic one, we've got this 1 and 3 FM operator synths, which is better explained over in the new version, the Pro version. We've got an FM carrier modulator pair. We've got 3 FM carriers and modulator pairs. So effectively, you've got one modulator and one carrier, and here you've just got them multiplied by 3 to thicken out the sound. In Cyclop, we also have these one carrier, one modulator, so dual oscillator pairs. In Cassini, again, we do have those there. We've got 3 oscillators in Cassini, so I think you can have a carrier and 2 modulators in Cassini. And we also have an FM pair in Nlog, and an FM pair in Magellan, and an FM pair in EGSY01, and so on. Now, the more operators you have, the more complicated your sound becomes. So here, if I've got a 3 operator synth, then I can have a carrier and 2 modulators. I can have 2 modulators and 2 carriers and a single modulator, and you get the idea. With 4 operators, I get up to 8 algorithms, and with 6 operators, these are the 32 algorithms that used to ship with the DX7. So you see, we're building up in complexity how you arrange these things. Over here, for instance, I now have 3 carriers and 3 modulators. Here I've got 2 carriers, with one being modulated by a single modulator, one being modulated by 3 in this cluster here. So when you modulate your modulators, you're producing a much more complicated waveform with which you're modulating your carrier. So again, you get much more complexity, much more noise if you're not careful. Now, in the original DX7 and DX11, that was it. You're just dealing with modulators and carriers. There's no filters built in. With subtractive synthesis, you have a filter that you use to carve your sound out of the mass of harmonics. So if you like, if you want an analogy, with subtractive synthesis, you start off with a big block of sound and you carve away all the bits you don't want until you end up with the sculpture, which is your noise. With FM synthesis, rather like additive synthesis, you start off and you add bits on, like sticking blocks of clay onto a sculpture until you get the sound that you want. And both of them have their own characteristics and tone. So, PhaseMaker is a true FM synth because it has no filter built in, which means that you're having to create all of the modulation, all of the noise, all of the movement in your sound and the complexity of your sound, the brightness and the dullness, all has to be created by you using the operators and the algorithms. So if I start off with something like 80s piano, you can see here I've got 2 carriers and 2 modulators. So the nice thing about PhaseMaker is it does have some extra algorithms in here that above and beyond the standard 32 that came with the DX7. There's quite a bunch of other partial algorithms that allow you to have less operators in. So 38, for instance, is a single operator. Here I've got 33. That's just one carrier and one modulator, and so on. So you've got some extra functionality built in that allows you to switch some stuff off. You can also just go to each operator in turn and turn its volume down to nothing. Now, in classic FM synthesis, generally you start off with a sine wave. Here you do have the option of changing the waveform to something more complicated, but as you're starting with a simple waveform in FM and building it up. If you make your waveform more complicated, then you're going to have to be a lot more careful not to make it over complex when you start building in other things. If you start off with a simple patch like the 80s piano, you can get quite a lot of variation in here just by changing the algorithm you're using. So if you're new to FM, it's actually just quite fun to go in, pick a patch and change the algorithm. Because all of those are going to give you a completely different sound. Another thing you can do, once you've changed the algorithms, or if you have an algorithm you're interested in, is then pick on one of the modulators and just change the envelope that it uses while modulating. And let's change the... So you're getting some interesting velocity sound coming in there. And I can also change 2, that's another carrier. Over on the utility side here, you've got this, you can manage some stuff. We've got this amazing mutate button, which I'll come to in a second. On the program side, you can change the relative volumes of all of the operators as well. So I can make my carriers a bit louder there. Bring in more of modulator 6, and so on. We've got some pitch envelopes which are global, and you can edit a lot of this stuff in the quick mode as well. So here I can just change the ratios. Now, I'm not going to go too much into ratios, but the less linear a ratio is, the more harmonics which don't fit the harmonic pattern for a given note come in, and so you get a much noisier, clangier sound. So messing around with the ratio is a quick way to get yourself some alien sounds here. You've also got an LFO built in, so you can you've got envelopes for all of your operators, plus you've got an LFO, and you can change the percentage of LFO for each of those. Okay. Now over on the utility button, we've got the mutate button, which I love because I love me a random patch. I can quite happily press this all day. It's a great way of getting a lot of good sounds out very, very quickly. In fact, I prefer the sounds to some of the presets, which I was not blown away by. Okay, so there we are. It's so you've got 6 operators, you've got a lot of algorithms, you've got pitch envelope, you've got various quick options for changing the relative volume of the operators. Each operator itself has a has a set of parameters. You've got different waveforms. There's a lot of functionality here for FM synthesis, and you can play around with this for hours and come up with great sounds. Yeah, so there we are. There's PhaseMaker. For anyone who's an FM fan, this is a must-buy. The other thing I should point out, unlike the other Bram Bos apps, this one does have its own keyboard, so it's got a standalone functionality version as well as being an audio unit. You can have it standalone, which for me is absolute winner. I love that. I know audio units are the way forward, but I'm very old school. Okay, bye.